sitting here in my Lazyboy chair, feet up in the air, time to spare. Try to tell you a little bit about my life, because I remember back in 1813 when I was born. My mother was Libby and Goddard, Dad, Boyd, and New Marshall. Their parents, Hattie and David and Corey Marshall. I was named Fred Wilkins Marshall. I don't know where they got the Wilkins, where they got the Fred. I've been stuck with it for 79 years now. Never used the Wilkins name, always used the W, Fred W. As long as I can't get moved to Lafayette, Dad kind of worked up Lafayette, worked at Swamp State, and Ross here, Fairfield. It ended up around 5 points, several different places. First, remember school I went to, first grade is in Ford School, which is not there anymore. And I remember first grade, I lit a big stinker. Teacher thought I ought to get outside on the street and get out. That's about the only thing I remember about the Ford School. Then I went to Wilkins School. Picked up a frozen custard. It's not there anymore either. And one thing I remember about that, we went home for lunch. Streetcar went down Main Street from east side to west side and up to Soldier's Home. And we got out of lunch one day, across the street, and one boy tried to jump on the streetcar and fell down and cut his leg off. That kind of worked on me. I was scared. And that's about the only thing I remember about that school. Then I moved up on North 14th Street. I went to the Washington School. About the only thing I remember that is they had a long telephone pole, horizontal, stuck up about 4 feet on. Kids played on that. And Brother Paul, he fell off and broke his arm. I think that's about all I remember about that. Oh yes, I did. I had a girlfriend there at Washington School, and I even remember her name. She didn't know she was my girl, but I did. Her name was Margaret Foster. And that's about all I remember about the Washington School. It's not there either. Got a new one. Better back up. I got to tell you about my first Santa Claus. Christmas time, and we were sitting around, heard the sleigh bells ringing and knock on the door. They let him in, and there was a little Santa Claus. He had a bag on his back, and he left some presents. He left me a sled, painted red and bright yellow letters with Fred on the top. I thought that was something else. That turned out to be Uncle Warren Goddard, and he was in carpenter work and liked to work with wood. He'd made the sled. And I'll tell you about some more about the Goddards. Uncle Al, he had a barber shop. We liked to go to his house, and he lived across the street from the park on Scott Street. Uncle Al Goddard, he had 2 boys, Guy and Clarence. Guy was the oldest, Clarence the youngest. He had a barber shop down on Main Street across from the old family theater, and he had 6 chairs in there. The 3 of them worked there all the time, and they had get a shave and a haircut, 2 bits, get your shoes shined. They had a shoe shine boy, had baths. 3 of them worked through the week, and on Saturday they had 6 chairs full. And I enjoyed going in there and show across the street. Uncle Al had the barber shop. He had the first chair. The guy had the second chair, and Clarence had the third chair. They're all gone now but Clarence. He's still living. He also lived on North 16th Street. I guess it's South 16th. We had a small yard, and we had a chicken pen. We had some chickens and an old white rooster. He'd flog me every time I'd go out there. And he had me scared out of the chicken law. We lived up on North 14th Street. That's where Mother passed away. We lived next to railroad tracks. We enjoyed going over and watching the circus unload, have a parade downtown. They also, a couple of colored twins lived down the street from us. Their dad Granddad worked in the gray garage. Dad worked in there at the same time. We'd go up there and tease those colored twins. They run us home several times. Also had a bicycle, riding my sister on the handlebars. Got around the corner and he stuck her foot in the front wheel, throwed her off, and come close to going down the water drain about 20-inch sewer. That kind of scared me. Tore up my wheel on the bike. Mom had two sisters, Ruth Goddard, she'd married a weaver, and Mildred Goddard, she was the younger one. She married a Nolan, and after Mother died, we stayed a while with Aunt Ruth. She lived around the corner on Union Street. And then she kept us a while, and Dad took us down to Granddad Marshall's. And I was about 12 years old already. And he took us in and kept us. They'd taken in several other kids and raised them and give them a home. So we stayed there, and I helped Granddad. I charged a big mule team. I'd go out and plow and harrow and rake. It was always my job to take care of the big mules, weigh about a ton. We had two mares. Granddad always took care of those. Did all kinds of things there. Learned to do different things around. I thought it was kind of rough on us. Seemed like we always find something for us to do. On Sunday, that was the day for the Lord. We always went to church and Sunday school. We had the day off. Of course, we had our chores to do, but that was our day off. We'd generally go to church and Sunday school, and then in the afternoon, some of the neighbors go someplace and have our dinner and get out and play all afternoon. And that was the only recreation we had. Granddad had about everything. He had strawberries, tomatoes, watermelons, all kinds of fruit. We'd have dried fruit. We'd put it up on the roof, dry up peaches and apples, watermelons. We had watermelons and muskmelons, sorghum, and popcorn, and sweet corn, and soybeans. We just raised a little bit of everything. And, I remember I had a railroad went down through there. The creek went down through there, but the railroad, they would train about twice a day. And every once in a while there'd be a bum or a hobo come over and want something to eat. And Grandma would always give them a glass of milk and sandwiches or feed them real good. And there was several of them stopped there. You also had maple trees. We made maple syrup, boiled it down. We had sorghum, took sorghum and had it, and sugar cane, took it forward and had sorghum made. We also had a huckster wagon come around about once a week. We'd trade the eggs and cream or chickens for sugar and things that we didn't have. And continued about a mile up the creek, the railroad is where Dorothy lived. And along about that time, Dad got married again and took a job. I was in the 7th grade, I guess. He took a job up in Michigan. Took 3 of us kids, a brother and sister, and the junior was the youngest. He was a baby. Left the baby with Grandma. He attached to her. And we went up to Michigan. Had a 1-room schoolhouse. Going on a dairy farm up there. And, 1-room schoolhouse, about a mile and a half, and had to walk to that school. Wasn't too bad, but we had 1-room schoolhouse, teacher for 8th grade. And I finished the 8th grade up there and had to go to Flint, Michigan for my diploma, graduation. And during that time, Dad's wife, I've forgotten her name, but she was a great cook. She made the best whole wheat donuts. And kerosene stove exploded and she burned to death. We lost her. And then we went back down to Granddad's. Finished school or started school down there at Tangier freshman. And that's where I finished school. 1932. We had a new gymnasium built. The one we had was set back away from the school, about like a barn. We had to go. We finally got a new school, or a new gym built on the school park. And we, the year we graduated, that was the first year for the playing basketball in high school. Played basketball, I always had to go home and do chores. I couldn't stay after school and practice. I had to go home and go back. One of my buddies lived over east, and he'd come over and we'd walk up the railroad and we'd ride the horse or mule. And most of the time we walked up the railroad, about a mile and a half quick. And then we'd play ball or practice. And we'd have to go home. Played on the basketball team. I was sixth man. I didn't get to play too much, but I was sixth man. Sat next to coach. And back to Granddad's, I'd take the team and mule. They were assigned to me. I'd take care of those. Get up about 4 o'clock in the morning, go out and get the team horse, and feed them, and milk the cows. Then we'd come into breakfast. Grandma would always have rolled oats and bacon and gravy and biscuits. She always had a big breakfast. Then I'd take the team and mule and I'd haul gravel and pull along the road. You know, the roads were all gravel. We had a gravel pit over close to the creek where they hauled the gravel out. It was kind of down in a hole. We'd load the wagons, and then we'd have to put 2 teams on the wagon to get it up on the road. And then we'd take off with the gravel bed and wagon, and certain roads we'd gather the gravel off. And I did that. I'd take the team and go to the river bottom and pick corn. Down the Adams bottom, I could pick 2 loads a day. I had to shovel it all, empty it. I'd make about $4 a day, price the team and the wagon. And then along came Roosevelt and the WPA times. I got a job on the WPA, making their river bottom levee down there, building it up. And I didn't last long. I figured I didn't really need it, so they took me off of that job and gave it to somebody else. And it seemed like no matter what kind of weather we had, we always had something to do. Nothing else, we'd take us down to the barn and pick out seed corn. Go through pick out nice ears of corn, and then they'd bite the green off and see what kind of a heart it had. Looked good while we save it for seed corn. Nub the ends off, tip and the butt, and then we'd run it through the sheller and save that for seed corn. We had something to do about all the time. We'd get the chicken house clean out and spray, and toilet to move, and seemed like we always had, no matter what the weather was like, we'd find something to do. I thought it was kind of rough at that time. I guess that was good for me. We had, you always had watermelons. We raised a lot of watermelons. We had to, Granddad would take a team and a sled-like thing and mark it off about 8 feet wide, and then go crossways and make squares or make the hills. And we had to get in that square and make a hill for the watermelon, plant watermelon seed. You always had to take a handful of chicken manure and then stir it all up with a hoe, and then plant the watermelon seed. And when they come up, why, Granddad would start cultivating them and plow them. And then we had to get out there and turn the vines, plow them one way, and then turn the vines and plow them the other way. That's the story about the watermelons again. We always peddled watermelons and load them up in the wagon and take them around to different places and sell watermelons. And, oh, I don't know. Going down the river bottoms, we always get out about 6 o'clock. We started down there, about 2 miles down there where we farmed. And we'd work down there plowing, or we'd take the noon hour and horses feed the horses. Always enjoyed that hour. Horses had to eat and rest. Then we'd work till about 6 o'clock and go home. Then we had 6 or 8 milk cows and milk. Took care of the horses and the horses and unharnessed the mules and let them out and roll and get water. We about a couple hours getting our chores done. Then we'd come in for supper. Kind of late, time we got around, we got our supper. Then get in and get out again in the morning about 4 o'clock. Going to school, and which of us boys decided to play hooky and go out. See an old hermit lived out. Lindley, see his name. He lived outside of town a couple of miles. Big mistake we took. Uncle Clarence Thomas, he was a teacher. He took his car, and we had to pay for it. We had to take a couple exams over, and it was kind of a rough time for us, but we had some fun anyway. And then another time, we finally graduated in 1932. And, times were kind of bad. There weren't any jobs. But another friend of mine, Chester Davies, he had gotten a car. We decided after school was out in 1932, I believe it was, we'd go up to Chicago and see if we could find a job. And the World's Fair was up there, so we spent some time over there. Never could find a job. So we come back home and stopped along the road. They had cherry and apple cider drinks, all you could drink for a nickel. We stopped several times and filled up on cider and cherry cider. And that experience didn't turn out too good, but we got to go to the World's Fair. I seen a little tractor up there was running around out there all by itself, no driver. The radio control. That's the first time I'd ever seen anything like that. I thought that was something. The control set out along the fence or yard and have that tractor running around and no driver. So then I don't know, we decided we were going to find a job, but we didn't find any work. So kept going to church and Christmas time and singing and choirs and having big dinners. And I kept watching Dorothy, and I thought she was very nice. I had a boyfriend did all my writing. I couldn't write any notes, or I'd have Lola Walter to do that for me, and then give them to Dorothy. And finally, thought we'd like to get married. I asked Granddad. I told him I was only 20 years old, but I told him I was wanting to get married. He said, "Who are you going to marry?" I said, "Dorothy Milliken." He said, "That's okay. You can get married. And she's a nice girl." So I didn't have any money, and he gave me a little sow, where he had pigs. I got $35 out of that, and that's what I got married on. I don't know, I think I gave about $10 for a ring, $5 for a license. I don't know whether I paid the preacher or not. She was our preacher there at the church, lady preacher, Mrs. Sharp. So we got married. We married over at Dorothy's folks. She had a treasure chest and a little money. Her and her mother did all the milking, and they got the cream checks. And so that's how we got married. She had a little money, so we decided to go to housekeeping in her grandfather's big old house. Lived back off the road about a mile, half a mile. We went down there and lived. Granddad wanted to know what I was going to do. I said, I'm going to work for Dorothy's dad. So I worked for him for a while. And 75 cents a day, go out in the woods, cross-cut saw and work in the woods for about 10 hours. And 75 cents a day and dinner. So I worked for him a while. I couldn't get along with him too well. So I decided to look for another job. And went to work for a fellow that run a store in Rockville, shoe store, clothing store. He bought a 100-acre down in the Raccoon Bottom, down by Rosedale and Bridgeton. And it didn't have a house. House had burned down. Was living in a big cement block garage. And made that into a house. Dad moved us down there, I guess, in the wintertime, January, or it was ice and snow all over the place, and cold. He moved us down there, and when we got down there, real cold. Neighbors up the road, they were right down there helping us unload. Said we had to come up there and stay for the night. So we went up there, and they were the best friends we ever had. They were just like our parents. And we had Joanne and twins. And had a little. They enjoyed the twins. And, getting ahead of the story. Anyway, we stayed there a year, and the drought that summer, we had to plow corn under, and the owner decided that he didn't want to farm anymore, so I had to look for another job. And next time I got a job on a dairy farm. My job to take care of the cattle. We had their milk cows. That's all I did. If I had any time left, I'd go back out in the field and work with them. At a certain time, I'd milk them and take care of them in the morning, and then in the afternoon, about 3 o'clock, I'd stop and go in and do the milking of the night and take care of the cows. Worked there for a while, and remember the veterinary coming out to vaccinate the pigs. And I was in there catching the pigs and holding them while he vaccinated them. And the old folks lived in a house right close to the barn. And they were always going in or calling me to come in and do something for them. And the owner, the man I worked for, he lived down the road a ways. But anyway, the veterinarian was a ventriloquist. He could throw his voice. And he had me running over to the door. I thought the folks was hollering at me. They were hollering, Fred, Fred. And I'd go to the door and I couldn't see anybody. I did that 2 or 3 times. They like to died laughing at me. I finally caught on then what was going on. Got to tell you about where we farmed down on Raccoon Creek. We was there about a year. We had a cow, and he gave us a hog to butcher. We had our cow and sold some little dab of cream. We worked 5 or 6 days a week. We had Saturday afternoon off to go to town. We had Sunday off. And we worked that job for $6 a week. And Saturday afternoon off. We had a windstorm came through. I don't know, cyclone or tornado or what. But we were eating supper. It was about late in the evening. Still daylight. We had a chicken house. We had chickens. And heard all that noise and got up and looked out there. The chicken house was gone. Some of the chickens were still sitting on the roost. And the roof off a big tool shed. Took the lid off and set it down right beside the garage where we were living. And neighbors that down across the field had a big barn. He was in milking a cow. He killed a cow and moved lots of barn away. And up the road, moved a chicken house, moved it off his foundation. He had animals and chickens scattered every place, and roofing, and that was about the worst storm I was in. I'll tell you about living down there by Rockville, that dairy farm. We weren't too far from Terre Haute. Go down there, Jews had a big line of stores, and they had all kinds of things in there, used stuff. And I went in there and bought a retreaded tire one time. That's about the time retreads come out. And the tread came off before I got home. Also, built me a little, bought a generator and a fan blade down there off of those Jews. They want to sell you something, no matter, they wouldn't let you get out of the store unless you bought something. You Jew around, haggle around about the price. I got that generator and I had a 6-volt radio console and run off a 6-volt battery. I got this generator and fan blade and mounted it on a pole. And kept the battery charged up. I even got me a 6-volt bulb, made me a little table lamp for my radio. And I had electric lights and radio. Even got a Maytag motor clipped a washing machine. It had a motorized washer. And always enjoyed going down there to Terre Haute and trying to chew those Jews down on their price. I was on that job for about a year, and then we moved up by Lodi. Finally bought a house in Lodi. Still had her cow. We had it staked out up across the railroad tracks and back in the woods. And had to go up there twice a day and milk, hunt her up. Then I got a job at a canning factory. Worked over there and first started with a team of mules and a wagon going out to river bottoms and picking sweet corn. I had charge of that mule team for a while. And I worked all over the canning factory. And went out in the field and picked pickles and beans, different things, tomatoes. I worked inside the canning factory, about all over. I'd done about everything. Then from there I went to brick plant, worked at the brick plant for a while, making bricks. And finally got a job at strip mine. Fell up there with the drag line. He was uncovering the coal. They had about 24 inches of coal. And I'd get down there with the wedges and pry it loose and throw it on the truck, haul up on where the screens were, and dump it. It'd roll down, make different grades of coal and slack. We burned slack block in the coal or in the stove. Mixed with a little wood. And then worked for him. Well, he decided to quit and mining, strip mining. And then he got a haul shale over at the brick plant. So I didn't have a job. I don't know where I went from there. But I worked for him on the strip mine for a couple of years. The tires were hard to get. I'd take the smooth tires off of his. He'd get a new set of tires. I'd get the old ones. And it was kind of hard to get tires and things like that. Anyway, I went over to the brick plant and worked for a while. And then I worked at the gravel pit and lining cars and stopping up holes the gravel pit where they load the railroad cars. I'd put in for a job at the aluminum plant. I never did hear anything. A fellow told me to write a personal letter to Dick Young up there. I did that, and in a few days I got a letter back to come up and take the test and go to work. We'd been, Philip and I had been going to Attica for taking welder's lessons. So I quit my welder's lessons, and I did work at Harrison Steel a while too. I forgot about that. Worked there about 4 months, and they shut down for repair for a couple of weeks. And they had me going in at about 3 o'clock in the morning, and they wouldn't let you have over 40 hours a week. And they shut down. I asked them if there's any chance of getting on days. There were several around Lodi that worked up there, and somebody to ride with. And no, I couldn't do that. So I said I was going to be back. And if I can't get on a day job, ride with the other fellas. So then I was called to go up to Lafayette, take the test. So I quit my welder's lessons and the different Lodi I did one. I remember twins, they weren't very big, but they went across the road. And the old lady lived across the road, and they had a well out in the back, or just covered up with some boards. And the twins were playing over there, and Wanda fell through into the well. Wayne come home hollering, "Nonny's in the well, Nonny's in the well." Time we got over there, why, the old lady stuck a rake down there, and Wanda was holding on to it. So we got her out that way. I'll tell you about my experience with cars. When I was living with Granddad, he had a big old Maxwell. It was a really nice car. We just had one like that. Anyhow, so I had a Model T Ford, big glass skin car, 2-seater. I wasn't supposed to drive, but one Sunday they were gone, and I decided I was going to get that Model T out and drive it. I drove it down the road and along a sand washed down off the hill onto the road and hit that sand and threw me out in the cornfield. I went through a barbed wire fence and cut the top of the radiator off, a brass thing about 2 inches high. You cut that off, slick as a whistle. And I finally got the car back out and put it back in the shed. And caught the dickens for that. Also, I never did get to drive a Maxwell, I guess. We later got a big Willys after I wrecked the Model T. I wrecked Dorothy and I was in it, and 2 or 3 other couples. We were going to chivalry. Somebody, Lloyd Harvey, got married. And back then, you have a chivalry. Raised a lot of noise, and so somebody come out, and then they'd ride the groom on a rail, and the girls would get in there, and they'd put cracker crumbs or something in their bed. You had to get up and go out, and they'd bring shotguns and bells and make a lot of noise till you got up. And then you had to treat them and give them in a cigar, and the women and the kids a candy bar. It was chivalry was going to when I wrecked the Model T. And one of the boys decided to go down and see if they were home. He went down and come back, and I happened to be first one in line. I was going down the road and would hit head on. Got several scars from that. And One of the girls riding in the car, she got hurt pretty bad. Had all glass. I got several scars on and cut the top of my ear off, and the doctor sewed it back on. And some of the kids were hurt. Well, that was kind of a costly experience. I wrecked the Model T, and then Granddad got a old Willie's, I think it was. Dorothy's aunt had worked in Akron, Ohio. She was a teacher, I think. She married a guy over there, and he got out of work, and they come back and down around about an acre of ground off of Dorothy's father, and built him a little shack over there. He needed the money, so Granddad bought the old Willie's off of him. We drove that a while. I don't know how long. From there on, I have to think of talking about cars. I had a Model T Roadster touring car with the side panels and top. That was pretty good Ford. It was hard to get gasoline. You could get white gas, but hard to get the regular gas. I run that Model T on kerosene a lot of times. These things run pretty good after you got it started. And I wish I had it. Another car, talking about cars, after I got married and lived, worked for Dorothy's dad, I bought a 1947 Chevrolet knee-action. That thing was always drowned out. You hit a water puddle and the thing would drown out. And you'd have to go around and wait an hour or so to get it dried out to get it started. I got tired of that, and I bought it off the Chevrolet dealer, Cyril Parker, in Tangier. He sold Chevrolet. The Chevrolet garage. I bought it off of him, and he bought it on time. Did it. And I decided he wasn't going to do anything, so I decided to let him have the car back. And I didn't have a car. I didn't have any money. I'd taken out, when I first got married, I'd taken out the insurance policy for $1,000. Well, I hitchhiked up here at Lafayette. I didn't get any rides, but I finally got to Lafayette. Went to life insurance, Lafayette Life. See what I could get on my insurance policy. I got $10 for my insurance. So then I went down to, I stayed with Dad while I was up there. He lived on outside of Lafayette, working on the farm. Stayed with him. And then I went down the old Jew on the levee, buys cars from the students. He had several cars around there. I finally picked out a Model A. It run pretty good. It's one of the best cars I had, I guess. I gave him, I think it was $10 down and so much a month. I don't know whether it's $1 a month or $5 or anyway, that's the way I got that car. Then went on. I had a car anyway. It was one of the best cars I had. Here I am again, back in the chair. I wanted to say a few things that I forgot about from the other tape. Grandma Marshall was not my grandmother. She was a step-grandmother, the only grandmother I knew. But real Granddad's first wife was Ida Bean. She had two boys, Clarence and Claude. and Claude was my dad. And that's the way I related to the Beans. John Bean had several children, and Ida Bean was his sister. And John Bean had a pair of twins, Ruth and Ruby, that I liked pretty well. And that about takes care of that, I guess. But Grandma Marshall, her step-grandmother, she took those two boys, and she had an invalid sister she had all her life, took care of her, decided taking on two boys, and she married Granddad. And she was pretty strict. She'd get after. She had any punishment. There was always a peach tree switch, and you had to go out and get the switch and bring it back to her, and she'd use it on you. I don't figure I was abused. I figure I needed what I got. I guess it's pretty good for me. And that time, earlier than that, Granddad had a school hack. Called a school bus. It was called a school hack. It was something like a bus body, only it was mounted on wagon gears and pulled by horses or mules. In this case, it was mules. He'd had a route he had to run every day. The hack had a row of seats along the side, bench seats. Had a little coal stove in there for heat. And I guess that was one thing I forgot to tell you last on the other tape. Then, back then, they had everybody, neighbors, they helped each other. Generally 5 or 6 in a ring. They'd have a butchering ring. They'd butcher about 6 hogs. They'd all get together and butcher about 6 hogs and cut them up, make sausage and lard, can a lot of it, smoked hams and bacons. And seemed like everybody was anything to do, there's somebody there to help. I remember one time we was helping Dorothy's dad fill silos. Granddad took a team in a wagon, and I was helping load the corn on the wagon. And John Sherrill and I was working in a field. And wagons would go up to the silo and he'd chop up all that corn and put it up in the silo for feed for the cows in the wintertime. And they had something wrong up there, and we had to wait and wait. And any wagons come back. There's a watermelon patch across the hollow from where we was waiting. And we went over there and ate the heart out of a couple big watermelons and went back and sat there and waited. And John pulled out a plug of chewing tobacco and cut him off a hunk. Asked me if I wanted any, and I said, well, might as well, I guess. I took a big chew, and I probably swallowed more than I should have spit. I swallowed some of it, began to get sick. All that watermelon come up, and I was deathly sick. And sat around there and waited. Next wagon come back with Granddad. And there was my time to load him. And I went over there and he says, what's the matter with you? I said, oh, nothing. And he knew it. I didn't tell him I didn't chew on tobacco. Well, that's chewing tobacco. I couldn't stand to see anybody else chew for a long time. Make me sick. Another, to tell you about school bus. Dorothy's dad had a school bus, or school route, bus route. He'd run the route in the wintertime. When school was out, he'd take the body off of the truck, and he had a stock rack he'd put on it. He didn't have any cab on. He'd always put out a big strawberry patch. He'd pick strawberries and truck them up to Chicago. Tomatoes, he'd put out tomato patch, and he'd have tomatoes all over the canning factory. And this one time, he'd take a load of stock over to Indianapolis stockyard, sell them. And I went with him. It was cold. Didn't have any cab, only windshield. We had the sheepskins over our laps, a lantern down between our legs. That was a cold trip. I remember that real well. He'd go to the stockyard, he'd unload the stock, and come back. And that was several miles over there riding a truck with no cab. Dorothy and I moved, left the old big house off the road, and found a little house over about 3 or 4 miles west, a little place called Lickskill. It used to have a country store and a post office, and they forded the creek there. You had to ford the creek. There's nothing there anymore, but Lickskill was what it's called. It was down from Uncle Bernie's place, down the hill and around ways. And, I don't know how I got the name Lickskill. There isn't anything there anymore, only you still have to ford the creek. Then we had a old 1928 Chevrolet, and had to sit outside. Didn't have any barn or anything to put it in. In winter time, you'd have a time getting it started. You jack up the wheel and crank it. You had to crank them all out. You didn't have any starters. And you crank, and you jack up the wheel and throw it in gear and then crank. Sometimes you take the spark plugs out and take them inside and put them in the oven for a while and get them warmed up. You then set a pan of coals under the oil pan, warm up the oil. You had a terrible time getting the thing started. But that's the way it was. I told you about moving down to Racing and Rosedale. From there, we moved back to Lodi later on. We had a house and lot there in Lodi, and we didn't have any money but $400. And Dorothy's mom paid that for us, and we moved back to Lodi. And right next to my brother, or sister, and her husband, Felton Frida Grubbs. And then we still had our cow. We always had our cows. We'd take it up across the railroad tracks and back in the woods up good ways from Lodi, about a 3/4 of a mile, it's supposed to go up there twice a day and milk the cow. And also telling you about my experience on the strip mine. One winter, I didn't have anything to do. And the fellow had him and 2 boys run a little underground mine up north of Lodi. And wasn't very much, about 3 or 4 feet of coal vein, but it was underground. One winter, I didn't have anything to do, looking for jobs, and I went up and asked him if I could work in the mine, and said, sure, he paid me so much a ton when I get out. And we'd go down the next day and shovel their coal and put it in the car, go down the track to the entrance, and he'd hoist it up the screens and roll down over the screen. One, you'd drill your holes and put in your powder. After you got that done, then leave. Dynamite powder would go off, and when you got out, you had time to get out of there. And the next day, you'd go back and clean up your coal and shovel it out and drill your holes and put in your powder for the next ray. Only got a couple dollars a ton, I think. I don't remember just what it was. Coal was only $3 or $4 a ton, and that wasn't too much. It'd make a little bit. One day, old Dan Clemens was working with us, and he passed out down there. He was having lunch. The air wasn't too good. We got him out of there and got him going again. And one day, I went up to work, and the boys wasn't there. There were 2 brothers. They didn't come in, and I went down by myself. No insurance, nothing. Went down there by myself. Got my coal loaded out, and drilled my hole, and put in the powder, and had 3 or 4 fuses to light. And I was lighting the fuses, and the lighter went out. And there I was stuck down there and couldn't get the lighter to work. And I got out of there in a hurry. I run my toe down that track, and I got out of there. And that's my experience with the underground mine. Yeah. Another thing, I worked up, after we moved to Lodi, I worked up Coffin Brothers. They had a lot of apple trees, all kinds of apples, several acres. I worked up there spraying apples and picking apples, and worked in the grading room. I did about everything. Philip and I decided that they was paying $25 an acre to clear an acre of ground down the river bottom. And Philip and I decided we'd take that on. We didn't have anything else to do. thought we could make $25. We didn't have money to buy tools, so Calkins, they bought the tools for us. We worked down there and worked. Finally got an acre cleared, and we decided to go up and settle up. We didn't want any more of that. So when we settled up, we was owing them instead of them owing us. We didn't have enough pay for tools. Well, that was experience we had clearing bottom ground. Also, they had, I even tell you about the experience with the peach tree switch. I got to use it only one time. We'd make, boys would make a corn cob pipe, and we'd smoke corn silks. There was other uses for corn cobs besides burning, making fuel. They was using out in the cornfield, you had to go, you used a corn cob instead of sheet out of Sears catalog. That was one thing he used corn cobs for. Came in pretty handy. And anyway, Grandma caught me smoking. She smelled it. Said, "You been smoking?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, we'll get the peach tree switch." And so I got whacked with that a few times. That's another experience that I had. I was telling you about working up the orchard. I picked apples. I picked a lot of apples. I could get 100 bushel apples easier than I could get 100 bushel of corn picking. It paid you, I think it was 4 cents a bushel. You make about $4 a day. That's about as much as you'd make. You had to work pretty hard to make that. We were living in Lodi when I was called to come to Lafayette to aluminum plant. I was working up the gravel pit, 50 cents an hour, 20 hours a week. And, something to do. I was filling cracks in the cars to load gravel and ship it out. So I called up Lafayette and went up there, took the test and went to work. I got 65 cents an hour up there. I thought that was a big raise. I didn't have any place to live. I stayed with Dad till we finally found a little place out on 26 West. And we moved up there then. I had Uncle George Nolan, his mom's sister's husband. He lived in Kingman. He was driving a semi, so he loaded household goods, all we had, and a cow, and moved us up to Lafayette. I lived with Dad a while before I found a place. And then a nice little place out there. We had the old farm yard and barn and place for some chickens and garden. We still had our cow and chickens. Went to work at the aluminum plant back in, went there in 1941, August the 18th, I think it was. And I started on extrusion on the presses. They were still putting in presses when I started. They put me to work washing the presses down and cleaning them up. And then I got a job on a press. I worked myself up to assistant operator. I worked there in extrusion for about 5 years, I think. I lost part of a finger. A piece broke in a die and come out across my hand. Took the middle finger, mashed it all up, and they took me to the hospital and tried to clean it out and put it back together. But later had to go back and have it taken off. The infection was in it. I went back to work, and I told them I didn't want to work on the presses anymore. And I said, if you haven't got anything else, well, I'll quit. And the fellow was hiring, and Jack Young. He wanted to know what was the matter. I stopped over there and asked him about it. He said, we got an opening in die repair starting Monday. And Dad was working in die repair, so I told him I'd take that job. I went back in die repair then. Worked there for a while, repairing dies and doing different things. And finally had too much help in die repair, so they bumped me back in the die shop. I worked on the filing machines and saws and different jobs. Then the job came up in die repair again, and I bid that in. Didn't like it too well. I had to go out on the presses and work on the dies and that made me too nervous. I lost about 20 pounds in a week or two and worked on the nerves too much since I'd lost the finger out there. So I took that job up in dye repair, and I finally decided I couldn't take that. So I asked to go back to my old job, and they finally put me back on my other job, filing dyes and saws. So that's stayed there then several years. I had to work 311. I had company seniority, but I didn't have department. I couldn't work days. I had to work 311 all the time. I worked that for a long time, and finally job came up in the 2 mill diver's down there. I did that job into a day job. And that's still working days when I retired. That's my experience out there. Now, I'll tell you later about how we lived. I was deferred from the service on account of working in defense plane. I had too many kids, so I didn't have to go to service. War. I worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for some time. I put in a lot of hours. Got the place where you couldn't get gas. You had stamps for gas. They allow you so much gas. You had stamps for meat, stamps for about everything. You couldn't get enough gas to do much running. So they finally run buses from about every direction. Had buses coming from Crawfordsville and Fowler and Logansport and Delphi, and you had to ride the bus. I don't remember how long we did that, but a good while. And finally found another house up north of Montmorency in the old Ed Marshall farm. It had a pretty good sized house, and barn and garage, 3 or 4 acres of ground around. And still had our cow and chickens. We'd buy a pig once in a while, run a pig and feed it out and butcher. Calves. We had one time we had 3 cows. And a full-blooded Jersey cow to start with. Then I bought a full-blooded Guernsey cow, and then later on I had a little extra money to buy a cow. Finally bought a brown Swiss, full-blooded brown Swiss, and had 3 cows. And I had ground wheat and oats and stuff in the barn for make feed for pigs or cows. And had it in a barrel inside, and the big doors barn was just closed with the buttons flop over one side. And we left one day and come home. We had 3 cows that was sick. They got in there and got that door open, got in, and found it on ground wheat and oats and corn. And called the veterinary, and he came out and said he wasn't anything he could do. So I lost 3 cows there at one time. And I had to go buy me another cow, milk cow. And that's experience with the cows. You know, I bought a horse and had a horse for a while, and used it, and I finally got another cow, and had calves and pigs. And I had to finally got rid of the horse and bought a pony for the kids. And it was so old we couldn't hardly move, but kids had a lot of fun with it. And come up a storm, lightning or thunder, that pony would go crazy, run. You wouldn't think he'd move that fast, but he was scared of lightning or thunder. He took a sled over the watering tank one time and come up a storm. It didn't hurt him though, but we're lucky there wasn't any kids around. Yeah, we had a goat. We had to build a cart for him, harness. I had dogs, cats. Had a nice place there. We enjoyed living there, but come a time we had to move. But while I lived there, I worked for Lowell Best down. He had a station in the garage down 52, old 52. That time there was three stations on old 52, and Lowell had his garage and the restaurant, and had a bank and Butcher X hardware. If he didn't have it, you didn't need it. He had all kinds of things. He had a post office, and grocery store, and bank, and garage, 3 or 4 filling stations. But I worked for Lowell or extra sometimes, and worked the night, working on cars and lawnmowers and different things. And on Decoration Day at 500-mile race, stayed open all night. There was always a lot of people driving then, going over there. There'd be somebody stopping, we stayed open all night, putting on belts or antifreeze or different things. Cars break down and stop. But that was sure different than today. Well, here I am back in my chair. I think this chair fits better every day. I've been off for a while. Been in the hospital, in and out now. I've had a slight stroke. Put me in hospital. Had to go in the emergency room one night. I'm out now. Going back for treatments, in and out. And I forgot where I left off, but I guess I was talking about the place north of Montmorency, the old Ed Marshall place. I think we enjoyed that place more than where we lived. We had our cows and our stock, and pigs and goats. We had the horse and pony. We enjoyed living there. I was always met at the gate down from the house. Kids always wanted to fight over who's going to get the lunch bucket. I aimed to leave something in there for them. And they'd fight over the lunch bucket and get a ride up the house. Also, we had a place to go mushroom hunting, place back in the woods. We had about 5 acres, I expect. We had the goat. We built a cart for the goat. Had the pony. He was kind of slow, but he came to life when they had lightning. And another thing there, the Don and Harold, they wasn't very big. They took off down the road. They was going down to school. Somebody come along and said a couple boys are down the road. Wonder if they belonged to us. We had to go down and get them, bring them back. And also, the kids got to playing with the dragging the purse in off the highway. They'd stick a purse out there and they'd run a string back off the road a ways. Somebody'd stop, see what it was. They'd pull the string and pull it in. One time, a fellow stopped. I don't know what they're doing. He said they'd better crawl. He had a gun. The kid said he had a gun. I don't know whether it was a gun or whether it was his finger. They got out of there, back to the house. They didn't play that game anymore. And about that time, farm was put up for sale. We had to move. We didn't find a place around Morenci. Finally found an old farmhouse up in Brookston, out west of Brookston. And it wasn't much, but it was a place to live. The kids went to school at Brookston for a while. And Don kept asking when we were going home. He didn't like it. Well, he finally didn't live there too long. Finally found a house down at the cemetery. Tom Gray and his family was taking care of the cemetery, and he tried to shoot himself. He didn't do a very good job, but they decided to leave the cemetery. So we got that house. We paid so much rent a month, and then we got paid by the hour for doing the work. At that time, we dug a grave for $12, and we mowed in the mowing by hand, more push for, and we'd chip around the stones. Decoration Day, we'd take the hand clippers and clip all the grass and the weeds around the stones, Got it all mowed up nice for decoration day. When we left that place, when we left the cemetery, we bought an acre of ground down on the corner and started a house. It wasn't too long. We had a lot of fun around that place. One time, Halloween, the kids kept turning over the outhouse. We didn't have any plumbing inside. Outside well, had a big cistern for rainwater. And Halloween time, a couple boys and a couple girls, they could come around and upset the outhouse. I'd set it back up. Next night, they'd upset it again. They did that 3 or 4 times. Finally, I decided to sit out in the red shed with a shotgun. I was to come back that night. All of them got hands up on the outhouse and ready to push it over. And I said, "What's going on out there?" Boy, they jumped and run, and I let the shotgun go. Heard the kids scrambling and falling down. They got in the car and took off in a hurry. I didn't have any more trouble after that. Finally found out who it was. The kids talking to school, they found out who did it. That was one thing they had to contend with. And the baseball field right across the road, I always had kids over there getting a drink out of that well. We had a black dog we got found, and he got along with Larry. Larry loaded him up in his tractor and his cart, haul him around. You see a bird, well, he'd take off and be gone for half a day at a time. He was a bird dog, and he's black, and he got so he would bite at some of the kids, or meter man come around, he'd bite him. And Joe Wilkins, he had charge of the cemetery, and he said we better get rid of the dog because somebody's going to get hurt. No, we took him the dog down and got rid of him. And we got another little fox terrier dog, Larry, to play with. Kept him in the house about all the time. He let him out one day and the car ran over him, killed him. Well, then we got another little dog, Manchester, Toy Manchester. She was a house dog, kept her in the house all the time. We had still had her cow. If we lost the cow down there at Ed Marshall place, when we went and bought us down in Newtown, bought us a Jersey cow. We had her a good while. We moved around, took her down to the cemetery, we stake her out. And Mrs. Hickman had a little shed back down behind the hill cemetery. We put her down there. Wintertime, she had a little shed there so you get in. So, we took care of the cemetery for a good while, and had a Jeep. The boys had a big time with that. And they was talking to them later, I didn't know it at the time, but they got Jeep hung up, stuck, all 4-wheel drive, got it buried. I don't know how they got it out of there, but I didn't know anything about that till here lately. And, Mom cooked up the schoolhouse for a while, kept the lunches. He worked there a good while. She was changing the cow around out one time, and changed the stake, taking her out in the cemetery there in the hollow. She turned her ankle, or the cow stepped on her. She had to be in the hospital. Her leg was all tore up, knee. Still bothers her. Complains about that. We lived there for a good while. I think when we left, we was getting about $25. They were open the grave. We got enough hours in. The kids all worked out in the cemetery. We got enough hours to pay for a rent. And I forgot to tell you about the 1946. I working out the plant. Lost part of my finger. And old Roy Sigmund, he went up and told Dorothy he was a pretty good friend. He'd give us his tractor, anything he wanted, he'd let us use it. And he went, he was working 311, I guess, and that night he got off work, well, he went up and told Dorothy about me getting hurt, and I was in the hospital. I was in there about 2 weeks. They tried to save my finger, but then they went back and had to take it off. Oh, I lost 4 weeks altogether. And he thought Roy Sigmund was a great neighbor. He'd take his tractor and had a pretty good patch of ground down at the cemetery. Take his tractor and disc and work it all up, and had a pretty good sized garden. I don't like to remember right now. I just think of something. We lived there at the cemetery for a good while, about 15 years. We had to take care of that. And, I had to miss work once in a while, dig a grave or have a funeral or something. But I go in late or leave early or something. But I managed to keep my job, both jobs. Then we decided to build a house. We bought an acre of ground down there off of Leary. And she let us have an acre. And we started basement, had a well down, and cut the basement down, the blocks, cement blocks up the basement walls, and had to put in a well and electricity, and we had to start on the basement. Workman Brothers took the contract to help us build it, and the boys were working Wayne and Don was working for Workman some, and Dick Rose. Some of them, they helped us get started on the house, and the boys did a lot of it. Mom and I did a lot, painting and shellacking woodwork. Boys had a lot to do with it. We finally got the basement done and made her kitchen and table and stuff down in the basement, her stove and washer. And worked at it as long as lived in the basement. We worked at the house as long as a good while. We was several years we lived in the basement. I had the upstairs bedrooms finished up. We never did get the kitchen finished for a while. We lived that way for a while. We finally, we went to Otterburn, got a loan, $7,000 to start a house. So we didn't get the kitchen finished up for a good while. And finally got the kitchen fixed up. And that's about all on that. I don't know what else to tell you right now. Got to tell you about printing wood. We had wood out to aluminum plants that used for run-out tables. You get burned and charred a little bit, and they throw it away, get new ones. They'd cut boards and wood and scrap lumber for 25 cents a trailer load. I'd go down to Kingman or Lodi and get some coal or slack. We call it slack. It's coal dust screenings from the coal. And I'd burn the slack and the wood together. We did that for a good while. Then when we cut the oil burners got away from the wood burning and the coal dust, and we had oil heaters, and that's all we used for heat. I want to tell you about I got pretty sick. Thought I was gonna lose my foot, amputated. I dreamed about it. Foot got all swollen and red, and I didn't have any feeling in the feet, and I didn't know what was going on till I found out ulcerations on each side of my foot. I went to the doctor, and he said I better go to the hospital. And I didn't want to go to the hospital. I needed to be taking care of Mom. Well, I told him I'd go home and think about it. We talked it over, and we decided I better go to the hospital. So they took me to the hospital. Stayed here about a week, and then I dismissed. And then I went back in. I had a light stroke, I guess, in my left hand. Couldn't work my hands, or couldn't move my hand. I couldn't talk. In the hospital again. Joanne came over and stayed about a week. She helped out a lot. Took care of Mom, and then they called Wayne, told him about it. He come home from Saudi, stayed about 12 days. Took real good care of me. Then finally got out of the hospital again, and I still had to go back every day or every other day to get whirlpool bath treatments on my feet. Take IV about every day or every other day. Every day for a while, not every other day. I'm back home now. And, can't do anything, but can't drive. Don't let me do anything, and got to take medicine 4 times a day, potassium, and a mess of pills. And Larry got some pill boxes. Got 2 of them. Each day is lined out with certain pills I have to take at certain time. That's been a big help. I can't remember all that, when to take them and when not to take them. Don and Lil's been taking turns dressing my feet. They're supposed to be dressed twice a day, morning and night. Wayne did that when he was here, and Lil and Don been doing that since Wayne went back. Been to have the day off tomorrow, and then I go back Saturday and Sunday, and next week I see the doctor. Monday I think I see a lady doctor, bug doctor we call her. She's fighting, giving me antibiotics and IV. I'll see her about Monday, and then see the family doctor McKinney about Wednesday. I'll know more next week. Maybe down to 1 day a week in the whirlpool. I don't know about how long I'm going to be on going back as an outpatient. Know more about that Monday or Wednesday, I guess. That's about all right now, I guess.